Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello, welcome back to Across the Park podcast, a remote show on a Tuesday lunchtime. Myself, Ian Mills, and my colleague, my partner in the podcast, Gary Judge. We are just after the January deadline. The door is locked. The squad that we have has to be the squad that takes us up until the end of the season. I'm going to ask Judgy if he thinks the window was thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle. I want to talk to Judgy about the amazing Leicester game on Saturday, which Judgy done an instant match reaction with Kev, but I'm going to get a bit more in depth from him. Look ahead to a huge FA Cup game this Saturday, Goodison Park. You know, it feels good at the minute. Before we get into that, big massive shout to our sponsors you see at the start of the video there. Our friend Lee from Globe Gas and Heating. He is booked up until almost Easter, and you guys are quoting Across the Park podcast to him, and he tells me in Judgy, and he loves it. He gives you free quotes when you do that. So if you need any sort of boiler, kitchen maintenance, plumbing maintenance, or you're looking for a new bathroom or a new kitchen, he is the man. A big, massive toffee as well. Local lad Lee at Globe Gas and Heating. And hello to Alfie Squad, who I've got new premises. Alfie Squad is it's a non-profit organisation, which is not quite a charity because of the legalities and things and what goes into it, but they help children bereaved by suicide. Me and Judgy spoke a couple of weeks back about how proud we are to be involved with two big Evertonians, Alison and Alfie. They've got an event at the end of February, which I'm happy to be going down to attend. They've got new premises on Jamaica Street, and the reach is unbelievable, doing great things. Judgy, I do want to, before we get into what I've just spoke about today, we didn't plan this, but our big friend who's no longer with us, Mr. Kevin Campbell, 4 times on the podcast, messaging us in between podcasts, making sure he shared our content when we never asked him to. He would have been 55 today. We still feel the loss of the big man, don't we?
Oh, tremendous loss, yeah. I mean, it's I think anyone who ever met him, and anyone any Evertonian who remembers him as a player, any Evertonian who remembers him as an Everton fan as well as an Arsenal fan, which is what he admittedly came to be. Such a kind, gentle man, such a generous man, as you said, whether it was with his time, with his money, loved by so many, obviously not least by his family, but by so many football fans. And you don't hear to this day a bad word said about Kevin, whether it be opponents, teammates, colleagues in the media. And for us, as you just said, Millsy, as we consider them to be a friend, and yeah, just a huge loss to the world as well as football.
Yeah, we wish we could have had him on today to talk about his 55th birthday and talk about his career, but there are a few shows in the archives if we want to go back and think about Kevin Campbell tonight. But we're going to concentrate on current Everton, Judgy. I think the majority of fans, although we don't speak for the majority, would gauge in social media, hoped and expected at least a striker in this January transfer window. When the current manager David Moyes came in, he almost said straight away we need to add quality to the squad. Carlos Alcaraz came in, or Charlie Alcaraz as he's called. He had a spell at Southampton. He's meant to be an aggressive, ball-carrying Argentinian midfielder, which sounds good, albeit his surname gives me anxiety. Another Alcaraz at Everton Football Club, but not judge him on that. Let's first of all start off with Charlie Alcaraz. Judgy, you watch a lot of football. What can we expect from Alcaraz coming in?
I mean, as you just put it, Dan, he's certainly an aggressive, assertive midfielder, not someone who's going to sit on the fringes and kind of let the game pass him by. He gets involved. He's box to box, drives forward a lot. He certainly chips in. He's chips in with more goals than I think we'd be accustomed to seeing from our midfielders, maybe aside from Decore. I wouldn't say he's a Decore in terms of playing off the forwards, but He certainly gets in the box a lot more than the likes of the James Garner, the likes of Mangala, the likes of Guy. He's certainly not a hold midfielder in that sense.
Okay.
So I think it's a good fit. I think he obviously fills a gap with Mangala being injured. But more than that, I think he gives us a bit more dynamism in that midfield and a little bit more athleticism. We've obviously spoke about the age of Ghana Guy, despite the fact he continues to be a consistent and loyal member of that midfield and that squad in general. James Garner, obviously, as we've seen last weekend, can give us something different in terms of the technical side of the game, but he lacks in athleticism, I think, admittedly, at times. This lad won't be left wanting in that capacity and certainly will not be shying out to tackle. Someone who I think could become a firm fans' favourite, particularly in derby matches where he's going to let himself, let his presence be known. And we've got one of them coming up very shortly. So I think it's a really astute signing. I think he's probably a player who's gone under the radar a little bit because he's gone back to South America rather than staying around in Europe.
Yeah.
But clearly someone I think who David Moyes must have had an eye on from when he played for Southampton, and he would have come up against David Moyes' West Ham. And he was a player that I'm fairly sure he got a goal at Goodison when we played them.
He made his debut at Goodison and then he scored a week later. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But he was decent against us. I wouldn't say he stood out, but I remember him playing at Anfield and having a good game against Liverpool. But he was always a player. I think when you watch them, particularly in live games, it was hard not to notice him. As I say, he's not a player who kind of sit in the background. He gets involved in the game. He puts a stamp on the game, and again, he'll be keen to get amongst the goals. I think the last game he played for Flamengo, he was actually on the score sheet as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. I think it's been well documented in the squad that we haven't got enough players to chip in with goals. I think we've got a lot of players. I think who are kind of fit into one position, but not necessarily that. That dynamic, but I think we've definitely got a good signing. And again, 22, you can't complain in terms of value. And we had a period certainly under Mashiri where we were bringing in players that were over the hill. And I think now there's probably out of our last 10 signings, most of them are under 25, 26. So I think it's another player who we could get some value out of, whether it's playing for us for 10 years or making some money on him in a few years if we sign, make the signing permanent.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into what I wanted to ask you about next, because the deal is it's a 22-year-old, and you're hoping that you get some good mileage out of him, and you could maybe spin him for a profit if you have to. Moving on to what Everton needed this month, my opinion is we've maybe gambled by not gambling, if that makes sense. I understand the PSR restraints are still there, and Everton don't want to go back down the road with been down, and that's correct for me. You do not want to risk everything again, and whether the players were out there or not, whether the value wasn't there. But for me, Judgy, I think we did need to bring a striker in. I'm quite disappointed. Do you share that, or are you okay with the window as a whole?
Yeah, I don't think any Evertonian could not be disappointed that we haven't brought another forward player in. And I deliberately say a forward player because it could have been someone who plays as an inside forward instead of just a traditional number 9. But I think we're definitely light in that area. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injured. Obviously, Brozier's injured. We've only really got one recognised number 9. It's got to be said. And aside from the weekends, which we'll obviously come on to, that number 9 has not proven to be the answer for us, in the last year or so. So, yeah, I think it's a concern. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a big gamble to have not signed someone, because I think we have been unfortunate in the sense that, the two of the players who we have gambled on by way of our domestic loans have for different reasons not worked out. I think when Harrison come back domestically on that loan, I don't think there were that many people disappointed. I think Harrison shown promise in his loan spell, and you thought he was going to kick on, probably a little bit like Sean Dyche, really. That hasn't happened. And Brozier's obviously had a very unfortunate injury, which has hampered us. So that's meant that we've not been able to go into the domestic loan market where we could have maybe picked up, Chukwuemeka from Chelsea. Now I know he's not a forward, but he certainly would have added to goals and maybe give us some more options. There were probably a few strikers that we maybe could have convinced the top sides to to allow us to have. But again, it is what it is. I think if you weigh up the two sides of, okay, would you have spent another 15 million on a Beto-esque signing, and put us right on the edge of that PSR line again, or would you, as we're going to talk about, save that money, bank it for the summer, and know that we've got a huge summer ahead of us in terms of players turning over, being out of contract, loads of gaps to fill, and save the money for a longer term, medium term investment? I think I'd be more tempted to go with the latter. I think the results have helped massively in the last few weeks. Let's not get twisted. If we'd have won one of those 3 games or none of those 3 games, then it would have been panic stations, and we would have had to gamble, and this would have been a very different conversation now. I'm not going as far as to say we're completely safe. That as it has with us in the last few weeks, things can swing quickly. If Leicester roll the dice again, get another manager in, he suddenly has get 3 wins on the bounce like David Moyes has done, then the whole picture changes. But as we sit here in the here and now, I think it looks like a sensible decision to not go and blow money, or whether it be wages or transfer fee, on a player that may or may not give us what we need.
Yeah, no, I think it's right to go into that territory, because you see the initial reaction on social media. We got a few comments, and again today, and social media is great for debate, as long as it stays as a debate. And a lot of Evertonians seem to be quite disappointed by it. But I do want to take another spin on it and say, if David Moyes continues how he's started, and this squad is safe by what looks to be a bit of a nightmare run in April, and you can get to the Southampton game at Goodison, you can have a celebration. I think going into the summer with 13 players needing replacing, basically who are loans or contracts expiring, the PSR year ending on June 30th, and the Bramley-Moore revenue coming into the books on July 1st. It's a big summer, Judge, isn't it? So I think what you're saying there is maybe Everton have had one eye on that already.
Yeah, and I think the reality of it is, if you're in our boat in terms of the teams from, let's separate the top 6, top 7, including your Newcastles, and I know Spurs have a bad run, but your Villas, your Newcastles, put them up there with the regular top 4, and Man United maybe in there as well. The rest of the teams really are either trying to avoid relegation and then just trying to strive to get into that top 8. We're actually in the fortunate position as it stands to probably be somewhere in the middle. I don't think any Evertonian, despite the fact we've had this really good run of form, looking towards our April, where we've got 4 or 5 games which are really tough, because hands on heart say we think we've got a chance of breaking into that top 8 and maybe sneaking a European place. I don't think that's personally on the cards. I think you would have needed 3 players in this window to really go and push that, and you're talking about beating 3 or 4 of those teams in that win in April, which I think is still beyond our reach. So if you rule that out, what are we playing for? We're playing really to get to the summer. Yeah. We're playing to again, as David Moyes has already done, slightly change the mood, try and play a little bit, try and encourage some of these players to play and progress between now and the end of the season, so if they go into the next season with confidence. So I think the decision or the conversation would have been, do we genuinely think that as it stands, we're facing a relegation? And if the answer was no, then I think it should be okay. Well, in that instance, let's try and work out what we've got. And that conversation would have happened if David Moyes firmly believed that this squad of players is not good enough to get enough points to keep us in the league this season. There would have been late moves. And I think as Evertonians at this moment in time, and own a little bit of respect for what Moyes has done so far in his first few games, you'd have to trust the manager and the manager's judgment. I think, as you said before, which is a good point, one of Moyes' first comments is we need bodies. But he's now been here for 3 or 4 weeks, and he's now probably seen, arguably, something out of some of those players that maybe he didn't think was there. You look at the Jake O'Brien situation. When he walked in, Jake O'Brien was cast away, hadn't played a game. He's now played 3 or 4 games on the spin and looks really comfortable in that position. Mykolenko, arguably, he hasn't ripped up trees, but he's encouraged. I think the managers show that actually there is a little bit more in there. And then they were 2 positions that you've got aging right backs and you've got 1 left back. The wingers, Ilman and Zai's got a goal. Jesper Lindstrom's been excellent for a few games. We haven't even had to touch Jack Harrison. So I think there's signs there for me personally to say that there's enough to keep us in this league and keep us relatively comfortable. And as you say, build towards the summer.
One last thing on the window, and we'll get back onto the football on the pitch. Everton did let 2 players go in the window. Stanley Mills goes back to Oxford. We wish Stanley all the best. He had a really bad injury at the start of his Oxford loan. I think it was start of last season. So me and Judgy do wish Stanley all the best. We know Danny, his dad, watches various social media Everton channels and stuff. So, and the other one, Judgy, is we tied Harrison Armstrong down to a 3.5-year contract. And loans him out to Derby County. Now, Tim Org-Burnham is back in the picture, and James Garner's back in the picture. A little bit of freedom to let Harrison go. Do you think that's a good move to go and play Championship football?
Absolutely. I mean, David Moyes shown us in his first spell at Everton how effectively you can use those loan spells. Seamus Coleman, Leon Osman, amongst others, but them two sticking out for me. It's a show of faith for me from David Moyes. That's what he does with players that he believes have got a future. He doesn't mess around generally. If he wants to sell someone, as he did with the likes of Shane Duffy and others, he sells them. He doesn't generally send players on loan and give them contracts if he doesn't believe they've got a bright future at the club. And I think he will have went out of his way to tell Harrison Armstrong that. I think it's a trusted formula for any player who goes and has a prolonged career in the Premier League, unless you're absolutely ridiculous. To go out on loan for half a season in the Championship, play regular football, play, in a very highly competitive league, and show, come back in the summer stronger, more mature, and ready to kick on. So I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a clever move from Moyes and the club. He could have easily kept him in that squad, and I think, if he was going to be selfish, having another body on the box and having another option to maybe bring on for 10 minutes. In the wide position or attacking midfield position would have been a luxury for him. But it's the right move for Harrison Armstrong, and it's definitely the right move for the club long term.
Absolutely. Now, onto football, Judgy. You've done the instant match reaction on Saturday with Kev, so anyone who's watched that would get the instant joy. I think Goodison feels different the past few weeks. It just feels. I can only speak for myself. I'm enjoying going to the game. We both took our young children on Saturday and watched the game. You sort of watch a game through your kids' eyes, and when they're singing and enjoying it. And me and you had a conversation on WhatsApp where we said we haven't really seen that a lot with our kids, and we don't. When we were younger, that's all we did. It was in the Gladys Street or whatever, and you're singing, and without jumping the gun too much, it feels different. It feels like we're maybe turning a little bit of a corner, but. How do you feel 48 hours or more, 72 hours removed from a 4-0 victory on Saturday? Are you still as happy and pleased and joyous as you were on the instant match reaction?
Absolutely, yeah. Just as overjoyed, to be fair, because it's again, it's giving you, as you said, then a chance to reflect on the experience that our kids have had or haven't had at the match. And my daughter put it really well. She's been to matches since she was 3. Obviously doesn't remember some of the ones going back further, but she's nearly 11, and she didn't want to go to the game. So for the context, it was the first time my son, who's 5, and my daughter, who's 10, have gone the match together. They've never been in the game together before at the same, obviously on the same day. My son was like, yeah, okay, let's go. He likes the whole, songs before the game, little sausage roll, and the typical stuff that the younger kids like. But he knows all the songs, as in like, that Rossi plays and stuff, and he enjoys them as much as the fans singing. And we obviously have got some videos on our social media of that as well. So the game went as I expected to him. He enjoyed all that. That didn't really change. But we got back from the match after it, and sitting down on the couch with my daughter, and she went, "I enjoyed that today, Dad." And I was like, "That's not like her. She's kind of become a bit of a moody teenager." So I enjoyed that. I was like, "Oh, that's good, babe." And she went, "It just felt a bit nicer. It just felt like everyone was happy." He said, "Normally people are angry in the game, and it doesn't feel nice." And I thought, I've never really thought of it that way. And she'd never actually put it that way when she'd come to a game before, to say I felt scared or I felt, maybe she felt a little bit embarrassed about that. but it was put so well. I was like, you know what, that's really like striking. Do you know what I mean? For a child to reflect on that, it's a bit embarrassing, to be fair, as well.
Yeah.
For people to get that, and to give children that feeling when they come out of the stadium, which he said, you know what, it was good because I felt comfortable. People felt happy. It just felt like a nicer place to be in. And we've said that before about the women's games, haven't we? About there being that nice feeling. But yeah, it was the first time that she'd said that and gone out to say she enjoys it. And the reason why was probably the way we're feeling, but we're open about it.
No, that's it. I think we forget sometimes that we're grown men and we can show our emotions in certain ways. And I've always used the analogy: if you stub your toe on the corner of the couch, try not to swear. That initial reaction is always going to be, and the booze and the anger at full time. It cannot be a nice environment for young children. And the Tottenham game and the Leicester game have just been great. And we watched the game together at the Brighton game, and we all celebrated at full time as a group of friends and stuff. And just feels different. And I don't know whether it's the Moyes effect or whether it's a new manager bounce or it's a bit more. But we can get into that a little bit if he wants. But the performance on Saturday, I think Everton were just brilliant. Leicester weren't much cop. But how many times have we seen teams not much cop come and still get something from good at something? That was different on Saturday for me.
Yeah, we blew them away. No two ways about it. And just to come back briefly to what you said around, like, you don't know what it is. Every fan feeds off, or all fans feed off the players and vice versa. The fans feed off the players feed off the fans. And there's just that real feeling of like everyone feels a bit upbeat and refreshed by it. You can see from the players, there's a spring in the step, there's an energy, there's a positivity about it. And the fans are kind of jumping on the back of that. And the players look happy. And again, I can't express how much that's striking. And I think anyone who's watching this who's maybe not an Evertonian or doesn't go to the game probably think, oh, you're being a bit dramatic here or whatever. He's using it to have a pop at Sean's ice. It's not about that. Again, I've said it time and time again, and I probably won't stop saying it. We've got so much gratitude for what Sean's done in a very difficult period. Yeah. That doesn't mean to say that you can't then say, look, okay, it doesn't feel right anymore. We've gone past that, And anyway, just going back to it, I think the players look happy. They look like they've been given a bit more a lease of life, a bit more energy, a bit more freedom, and they're feeding off that. It looks like they're enjoying coming into work, and then they're seeing Goodison as an extension of that work on the training ground. Whereas for so many months, if not longer, the players have looked like they dreaded coming out of Goodison. Like, oh my god, and they'd shrink, and you could see it, and you get and then the frustration is born from the fans going, "Oh, what are you doing? Come on, do something!" And you could see these couldn't wait to get off the pitch. Whereas now they don't want to leave the pitch. They're walking around, they're soaking it up. I can't remember the last time I've seen a player throw his shirt into the crowd. Ilman and I come down to the park end, give a shirt to one of the fans. Like, they didn't want to be near the fans. You can now see they're going out of the way to try and connect with the fans, because there is that mutual feeling of happiness, that they're there together, that they're enjoying it together. So just on the feeling, that's it for me. It's as simple as the players look happy and the fans are feeding off that. In terms of the performance, as I say, it was we blew them away, and it was just literally we came out, and this is what we've all been crying out for as fans, for us to put our stamp on games against the weaker teams. When I say the weaker teams, you could argue that there's not been a great deal of difference between us and Leicester at times this season, but there was 5 or 6 players in our team at the weekend who almost made a point of saying, we're better than these. I'm going to win my individual battle, completely. I'm going to destroy the person against me. And the game was won so quickly. It was unbelievable. And it goes, and what was great to see, and obviously just kind of going through the game chronologically, there was clearly a plan. That goal wasn't, it wasn't a fluke that we just lumped the ball up. Lumped the ball up towards the touch line to try and win a flick on or win a throw in their third. It was like, no, we're going to go right towards their goal. You had 2 players running forwards, not trying to win the ball. Beto didn't even try to win the head. You could see his job was just to try and allow the ball to go on for Decore's run. It was like it was like a training ground, set piece off the kickoff, and that was great to see. And obviously, when you score that early, it sets the ground alight. But at the same time, we've seen it so many times when we score so early, and it's like, oh shit, what do we do now? There was no doubt what the plan was after that. Let's steamroll them. Let's go again. And it's a while since I've seen an Everton team, and now we're gonna show you gonna quote it in a moment. First time that we've ever been 3-0 up, 2 home games on the bounce in the Premier League. But it's been a while since I've seen an Everton team go for the throat and not just kind of go, okay, we're 1-0 up. Do we stick with this? Do we twist? There was no doubt what the game plan was. That was to go and take the game to Leicester and go and get it won.
Well, that's where it got. I mean, you've correctly referenced there that we are grateful to the previous manager because I think he did have the crappy end of the stick for a long time. But what got me at the end is when we were at home, we weren't playing at home. I didn't think he recognised that this is Goodison if we get these fans on with these players. I think Dave Moyes knows what this place can do, and he said these players, if you play in the front foot and you try and score early and you continue to attack, I think it's made such a difference. And you're right in saying what the connection to the fans as well. I sat in the paddock on Saturday because we had to move a few things around to take our children, and sat next to Colin, who's part of the podcast almost, and I was 3 or 4 rows from the front, and at the end when the players came over to like Ladder Street, and they didn't want to leave. You're right, they didn't want to leave the pitch. And Abdoulaye Doucouré was encouraging the Ladder Street to sing the Beto song, and so was Idrissa Gana Guy, and he put their arms around Beto, and I just looked and thought, wow, like 4 weeks ago we weren't together, and it's just took a few weeks. And football is a funny game, isn't it? I do want to talk about a couple of individual performances. I don't want to go too in depth on the game. First one, I think it's right to start with Beto. He was a bit of a lost cause for me when he was pictured in the airport going to Italy. I had no great disappointments over it. I just thought it hadn't worked, and injuries have mounted up, and they've sort of forced him into the side. I thought Everton played to his feet on Saturday for the first time in a long time. He wasn't getting balls launched at him, and his goal, even Tarkowski, but when he put that ball through, it was on the floor. James Garner looked on the floor. I thought Beto was really, really good. There's areas of his game which are not great, but I think we played to his strengths on Saturday, and if we could continue to do that, Judgy, is there a player there who can score more goals this season?
Yeah, I'd go further to say I don't even think we played to his feet. We played in front of his feet. I don't think he's great with balls to his feet. I don't think he's great at trapping the ball and bringing other players in. But anything in front of him in straight lines, he's an absolute threat. He's a straight line runner. You can see from his build and the way that he runs anyway that he's out and out straight line running. And I think if you put balls into that area, as Tarkowski did, as you said, as James Garner did, Tarkowski's ball, and it looks like a great ball, as does James Garner's. They just put it into an area. James Garner's is a bit more threaded than Tarkowski is. Clever, Tarkowski's a centre half. There's no airs and graces about James Tarkowski. He can put balls into areas, and he has got a decent range of pass on him. But clearly, Moyes and his team have recognised, look, the lad has got some serious pace over 20 to 30 yards. If you can put the ball in behind a defence into an area, he will get there. And that was clearly a tactic that they worked on. So I think I'd go as far as to say it wasn't even putting into his feet, it was putting it into the spaces that he could run into. But you're spot on in that clearly they played to his strengths. And I'd said it a few times on the podcast. In fact, Colin was probably most vocal about it as well when I've spoken to him on here, saying that he's been hung out to dry. He's not been given a chance because we played completely differently and tried to put a square peg in a round hole, trying to ask him to play like Calvert-Lewin or play like other forwards that Sean Dyche has maybe worked with. And Sean Dyche's never liked him. I said it the last time we spoke about it. The fact that every single time he'd play him away against the top sides was just a fucking piss take. And it was almost again to go, look, he's not good enough. Well, listen, put any forwards up against a Man City when you're getting 15% possession and you're expected to just chase things into the corner. They're not going to look great either. But yeah, you're spot on. I think we're certainly appreciating what he's good at. And listen, he paid us back, in abundance of the weekend. 2 chances, 2 goals. You can't ask for a forward to be any more clinical than he was at the weekend.
There's one more player I want to speak about, and I did say 3, but I'm going to let you bring the 3rd thing because I know he was your man of the match, and I know you're really impressed by him. You said on the instant match. So I'll bring someone in who I think has just become so important. Iliman Ndiaye. I just think he's enjoying his football. The crowd love him. He loves the fact that we love him. He scored 3 and 3. He's almost, I think when you're taking penalties in a team that are fighting for survival, you're putting things on your shoulders. He's got that characteristic about him. I thought on Saturday he was central, he was left, he was right. He entered the game as a 9, and I just thought he was a menace. How impressed have you been with Ilman and Jai over the season?
Incredibly impressed. I mean, I think the last time we spoke about him when Sean Dyche was still in charge, I just said, look, he's just missing the numbers here. All right, he's got a few goals and the odd assists, but he's missing, getting a goal every other game or every 3 games. That's what he's missing. The stats don't quite give him a lot, don't really give him the recognition he deserves. But he's getting that now, as you say. He's got 3 goals in 3 games. But I spoke to a colleague. I think I mentioned this when we first signed him. He's a Sheffield United fan. He just said, "Wow, you're getting some player." And he says, "And your fans will love him because not only does he take on the responsibility when he gets the ball, he'll also wear his socks off. He'll chase Everton down. He'll chase lost cause. He'll kick people. He'll play with passion. He'll play with aggression." But I think we put it on the last podcast. The difference is all the stuff he was doing earlier in the season, he's now doing 20, 30 yards further up the pitch. So he's now beating a player. He's getting a shot off straight away. He's now, as we've seen at the end of the game, intercepting the ball in the area and passing it into the goal as opposed to having to clip it over the top or hit across from deep. So just the simple tweak and adjustment of playing someone like him 20, 30 yards up the pitch has made the world of a difference to us as a team and to his confidence because he's now getting the returns.
So clever. It's like he's seeing things. He's seeing the next ball.
Yeah, and that's like they're the footballers really, and you don't get many of them where they literally like mavericks. The things are coming off he's flicking things off his heel, and he's doing things that really you can't coach. This is a bit dramatic, but Liverpool as a player a few years ago, and Liverpool fans adore him. He actually came up in a debate we had over in Ireland last weekend, Luis Suarez, where it's like you just don't know what he's going to do next. Now, he's not that level, but for us, in terms of the other players we've got, he stands out that much above the rest of our team in terms of just being, as you say, just one step ahead, just always seeing the next ball, always having ideas that you think, wow, where did that come from? So it's a pleasure to have him, and credit to David Moyes again for allowing him to have a bit more freedom and for him to have the influence on the games that I think we all had a feeling as Everton fans he could have.
Yeah, I don't know who loves him more, me or my little boy Noah. And I say that I think he's the first player since Richarlison that the fans have said, "You're ours, we love you, we trust you, we're turning up, we're paying our money to watch you score goals." And I think it's nice that the younger generation, it's nice that we have that. It's nice that we go to the game and go, we love that player. But for the younger ones, you see the cardboard cutout signs of all in dying and stuff. And I think that's an important part of growing up as an Evertonian. And we've got a player there, and let's hope we can keep him because I think forget Brantwaite and Pickford. I think there's going to be eyes eventually on can he go to a Tottenham or a Newcastle and unfortunately take that next step. But the last player, Judgy, you spoke about on the instant match, and I think you said he brought a different dynamic to the team, was James Garner. He was your man of the match. You still stand by that?
Yeah, absolutely. Not least the fact that he hadn't played since, what was it, October, November. To come into the team the way he did, to start the game, to take it by the scruff of the neck, to be everywhere off the ball in terms of winning tackles. And he had some decent shoes to fill there. I think Mangala, I said to you when he got injured, it was a big blow. He was growing in stature. He'd become a bit of a go-to player even early on for David Moyes. It's like, look, this lad has got a bit more in the locker. He'd started to pop up in the area a bit more. So, to come in, there was a bit of pressure. I was actually, coming into the game thinking, I'm worried about how that gap's going to be filled. But make no mistake about it, he filled it and more. I thought he was outstanding. I thought, his contribution when he got the ball, how positive he was. He set the tone, I think, for me in possession. And, the fact he's he's taking every corner, every free kick. I think some of them could have been a little bit better if there was anything I could probably criticise. But I just thought it was great to see him back out there. And I think for a change, obviously when a player comes back from injury, you think, it's going to take him 4 to 6 weeks to get back up to speed. It almost looked like he benefited from the break and he looked fresh. And I think it's a huge bonus to see him playing so well. And as I say, contributing with an assist in his first game. Man of the match for me, definitely.
Yeah, I couldn't argue. There was a lot of good players on Saturday, but I thought Garner did bring something that we haven't seen for a number of months. And I think David Moyes let him play football. It wasn't just about marking and helping and running on the off the ball stuff. It was, if you get the ball, can you create? And I'm looking forward to seeing how James Garner kicks on with that style of football. Judging moving on to Saturday, it pains me as an Evertonian to say that Bournemouth are better than Everton at the minute, and that's not a nice place to be as an Evertonian. So I'm saying that because I'm trying to say it's going to be a tough game. However, historically, it's a romantic competition for Everton. The FA Cup, there's been giant killings. There's been teams who have not finished top of the league winning the FA Cup, and I think momentum has been a big part of that. I think back to 1995, where every time we had an FA Cup game, and it just felt like bring anyone on. And I feel like we're in a bit of a position now as a fan base where we're excited and we're happy, and I think although Saturday will be tough, I'm excited for it, and it's been a while since I've felt like that. Are you the same, getting into Goodison for the big FA Cup fourth round this Saturday? Are you confident that Everton can go and win that one?
Yeah, I don't think you could say you're not confident. I agree with you. But listen, Bournemouth are in a much better place than us right now. I think they're seeing the benefit of a manager who, as we've said before, plays in a defined way. He's consistent with his approach. He's been there now for the best part of 18 months. His signings have kicked on. There's been players that he's improved, and obviously they're all higher up the league, and they've got some really impressive wins, not least the one at Goodison where they stung us after us being in front. But I think there's momentum with us at the moment. They've obviously got their own momentum, but I think there's certainly momentum at Goodison and momentum with the fans. I don't think they'll be looking forward to the trip this weekend. I think they've got a massive eye on the opportunity in the league, and I think that's where, just looking away from Everton for a moment and focusing on them, I think that's where the opportunity is for us. They've got a real chance of getting into Europe and even knocking on the door of the Champions League. And I don't think for a minute that's not going to be in the back of the minds of Iraola. Obviously, I think he'll be a believer like anyone in momentum, but he has been known, certainly with the League Cup, and I'm not sure if it'll be the case. I think it will be the case this weekend with the FA Cup, that he'll probably shuffle the pack. He'll be thinking, look, we need to make sure we keep certain players fit. We need to make sure we maintain our league position, which without doubt for any club is the bread and butter. I think there might be an opportunity there for us. I definitely think they will still be prioritising their league form and their league position. And I think if that's the case, and they're playing against a team who know we haven't really got much to play for in the league apart from staying up, I think that could be psychologically an advantage to us. So I think we've got more than a strong chance, to be honest. All that in the mix, I'd make us favourites. Despite the fact they're a better team at the moment, despite the fact they're higher up in the league, I think coming to Goodison at this moment, and with the fact that I think he'll make changes, I don't think there's any two ways about it. We'll be playing our strongest side, and David Moyes will be absolutely determined to get us into the next round and to start to get, again, to breed that further positive vibe around the club.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it's important, a positivity. If I'm the manager, and especially with a little bit of negativity of how the window ended in some quarters, I think a win on Saturday and you go into the Merseyside derby the following week. It's a big, massive week at Goodison. We don't talk about it enough. I don't think that this place will be gone soon. And we've had the last Boxing Day game. We've had the last first game of the season. We've had, and coming up is maybe the last FA Cup game, because I'm hoping that that's the case, because we get drawn away in the next rounds, and the last Merseyside derby, which I really hope is next week, because I wouldn't want an FA Cup game against them again.
No.
Excited to get into Goodison, and it feels different, and a big part, Judgy, we're huge friends of these guys, and we said that we'll talk about them before we go. The 1878s, the displays they put on, we spoke about it last week because we were in the park end where the display was, and I was at the Gladys Street end last weekend, and Gladys Street had the big display. They make such a difference. Me and you are going to get down to the grounds on the next couple of games because they've they've put on their Twitter and have asked for people to share it that these things don't happen accidentally. Those flags don't plonk themselves there. They don't remove themselves from the ground. They don't wave themselves. Volunteers are needed on Saturday and Wednesday to wave the flags, to remove the flags, to set the flags up. Me and you going down, Judgy, but I know you're going to repeat yourself, but how important have they been to the atmosphere? Because for me, that visual is just unbelievable.
It's magical. And again, go back to the kids. Oliver was just like, couldn't believe it. It'd been a while since he'd come to the game, and again, in 5 years, it's the visuals and the sounds that capture the senses really, and he was just like, wow, it did look like something special. It does every game, and I said to you, and I said on our WhatsApp group, it looked like on Saturday, it looked like a scene out of the 80s. Yeah. Like it just seeing them everywhere, it just makes such a difference. And again, for the players visually, it must be amazing. As Goodison always sounds incredible. I think when the players first come out the tunnel and certainly post sirens and everything, the noise is because of the way the ground's set up. But it's still at times can look a little bit grim. But the difference that's made in terms of the partisan feel to it. But just, it's such a spectacle. And you're right, they deserve huge credit because let's not forget that these were doing this when the club was on its knees, by the way. It's not like they're riding the back of a wave where we've won trophies and it's parades like they get across the park. This is a group of people who got together when nobody could think of anything worse than going and making the extra effort. They made the extra effort. They raised the money. They turned up, in the worst conditions. So absolute, amazing admiration for what they're doing. But as you say, it's added so much to the spectacle of Goodison in its final season.
If anybody does want to get involved, to not only help, but to also selfishly get into Goodison Park for a selfie, they're asking for help, and I think they need more help in the waving and the removing of the flags once you're in the ground. So especially if you're sitting in the park end this Saturday and then around the grounds on Wednesday, and if you want to be a part of it, reach out to the 1878 on Twitter, or just contact us and we will put you in touch with them. Judgy, it's been a nice positive show. I'm going to leave you with something, and I want you to do the same to me next week when you host. We haven't rehearsed this, but I just thought it'd be a nice, fun way to end. Me and Judgy for a number of years, been friends for over 25 years. Would you rather has always been something me and Judgy do. So, Judgy, I challenge you to raise me next week when you host the show. But would you rather at 10:30 last night, Everton to have signed a 24-year-old Leighton Baines or a 24-year-old Tim Cahill?
Have we got to answer it now?
You can bring it next week if you want. It's up to you, and we'll do it that way. We'll have a think about it. Or are you bold enough to go straight away?
I'd have to say Leighton Baines, as much as like I think I was thinking about the derby. I'd go Tim Cahill, but I just think like God, to the difference that would make to the whole team to have a left back as good as Leighton Baines. Those corners, those free kicks, the option in open play. I'm not saying we've got to play it anywhere near Tim Cahill in there, but yeah, I'd go Baines.
Fair enough. Anyone who's watching or especially watching on the YouTube app, please leave your comments if you want to get involved. Me and Judgy will interact. Or if you're shouting at the radio in your car now, get on and contact us on the Twitter or the
just
X.
Literally in the comments. Just put in the comments Baines or Cahill. No other words. Yeah. Baines or Cahill. Just put Baines or put Cahill. And I think on our Spotify one, we can put a little poll on there. So I might give that a little go this week and just put Baines or Cahill.
That sounds good. I've started a dangerous territory here because to raise Judgy in a would you rather is dangerous. But I thought it'd be a fun part. I hope that you guys can get involved. But anyone again who's watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. Behind the scenes, it does so much for us. YouTube push our videos up. It means we can get better advertisements. And back in the studio next week, we've got the Bournemouth fan preview with the Red Cherries Army. I'm booked in for them with them tomorrow to be out on Thursday. We've got a derby preview next Monday, and then hopefully a very good instant match reaction on both Saturday and Wednesday. But we appreciate anyone who's clicked this thumbnail or listened to this podcast. You will never realise how much we appreciate you sticking with me and Judgy and the positive vibes, and we encourage everyone to interact in the comments as well. That's what it's all about. Life is good. Life is better when Everton win. See you at the FA Cup at Goodison Park on Saturday. Up them Toffees.